If you make a mistake in a street fight, you're done. No second chances, no do-overs, just pain, injury, or worse. Most people walk around believing complete nonsense about street fighting. Nonsense that will get them killed. In the next few minutes, I'm going to expose some of the most dangerous myths. Lies that could put you 6 feet under if you rely on them. Are you ready for the truth? Let's check it out. Most people have no clue what a real street fight is like. They think it's going to play out like some MMA match or some choreographed movie brawl. They believe garbage advice that could get them killed. In this video, I'm exposing the biggest street fighting myths and breaking down what actually works in a real fight. Myth number 1, size and strength doesn't matter. People keep pushing this nonsense. They'll tell you technique is everything, and a smaller guy can easily beat a bigger one with the right skills. Sounds nice, right? Too bad it's total BS. Now, let's talk about the actual truth. Size and strength absolutely matter in a street fight. It's simple physics. A larger opponent has more mass, more force behind their strikes, and can absorb more damage. If someone is significantly heavier, stronger, and knows how to fight, you're not just at a strength disadvantage. You're up against a force multiplier. Skill alone isn't a magical equalizer. Sure, superior fighting technique can help you, but if you think pure skill will allow a 150-pound guy to manhandle a well-trained 220-pound fighter, you're living in a fantasy world. That's why combat sports like MMA and boxing have weight divisions, because even at the highest skill levels, size and strength matter. There's a reason real-world violence favors the bigger, stronger attacker. If you're naturally smaller, that doesn't mean you're doomed, but it does mean you need to train smarter. That's exactly why I wrote my War Machine book, to help you build raw strength, explosive power, and an intimidating physique that acts as a deterrent before the fight even begins. Strength isn't just about lifting weights, it's about becoming a human weapon, one that can deliver maximum force with every strike. Now, War Machine is also available in audiobook format, and if you're a War Machine Vanguard or Elite member, you can listen to it for free. And if you're not a member, you can join today. Check in the description down below if you want to check it out. But raw power and brute force alone isn't enough. You want to tip the scales in your favor. You need to train in a reality-based self-defense system that's predicated on street-oriented combat techniques. The only problem? Most called self-defense systems don't hold up in the chaos of a real fight. They're built on theory, flashy drills, or techniques that fail under real pressure. Myth number 2, the jab works in a street fight. Now, people love to say that the jab is an effective tool for street fighting. They claim it's fast, it sets up other strikes, and it keeps your opponent at bay. Sounds great in theory. Too bad it's total BS. Now, the jab is effective for sport fighting, but in the streets, it's next to useless. It doesn't carry enough power to neutralize a threat, and it leaves you dangerously exposed in a real fight. Now, all of these deficiencies are discussed in detail in my video, Why the Jab Sucks for Self-Defense. But let me break it down again. The jab is a probing tool in boxing and MMA. It's used to set up shots, maintain distance, and rack up points. But in a real fight where someone is trying to hurt or kill you, you don't have time to set up anything. You need to neutralize the threat immediately. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking, but what about the heavyweight pro boxer? Their jab can knock people out. Sure, but let's be real. What percentage of the population are heavyweight pro boxers? Almost none. The average person throwing a jab doesn't have that kind of power, precision, or experience. Most importantly, no matter who is throwing the jab, it's still a telegraph blow when delivered from the pre-contact stages of self-defense. Clenching your fist is a true giveaway, no matter how skilled you are. The bottom line, a street fight isn't a boxing match, and you don't have the luxury of setting up punches like you would in the boxing ring. In a street fight, you need a full power, weight-committed strike that shuts down the fight immediately. That means you should throw the jab out and replace it with the lead straight punch, which generates real force and does immediate damage. This strike works because it uses the fluid strike principle, driving power through the target instead of just tapping them like a jab. And here's the key. Whatever you throw, it needs to be delivered with full commitment, body weight transfer, and the intent to end the fight immediately. The jab simply doesn't do that. Myth number 3, I'll just take him to the ground. Now, a lot of MMA and BJJ guys believe that if they take the fight to the ground, they'll automatically win. They assume that because they train in a controlled environment, the same tactics and techniques will work in a real fight. Sounds good in theory. Too bad it falls apart in the real world. This is one of the biggest misconceptions coming from sport-based fighters. They assume that because BJJ and MMA takedowns work in the cage, they'll work just as well in the street fight. The problem, the street isn't a controlled environment, and deliberately taking someone to the ground exposes you to massive risks that aren't present in real sport fighting. Once you take the fight to the ground, you lose mobility and drastically limit your options. You can't react to multiple attackers or spectator intervention. You won't see a weapon being drawn, and now you're fighting on concrete, asphalt, or even broken glass, not a soft mat. And if you think you're just gonna take someone down and work your game like you do in the gym, you're in for a nasty surprise when his friend soccer kicks your head into the pavement. If you study Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or MMA, you need to rethink your street fighting strategy. Instead of focusing on getting a takedown, you need to focus on staying on your feet, striking with maximum efficiency, and avoiding prolonged engagements. Does that mean that BJJ is useless? No. If you're taken to the ground against your will, knowing how to escape and regain your footing is valuable. But the difference between sport BJJ and real self-defense is mindset. In the street, the goal isn't to dominate on the ground. It's to get up as fast as possible and avoid getting stomped to death. If you're an MMA fighter or a BJJ practitioner, the real lesson is this. Stop assuming you'll get to fight on your terms. The street doesn't work that way, and if you don't train for the chaos of real violence, you're just another guy with a false sense of confidence. Myth number 4, I'll just pull out my gun. Now, a lot of people believe that trouble starts, they're just gonna draw their gun and end the fight. They assume having a firearm instantly makes them untouchable. Sounds good until reality kicks them in the face. This is one of the most dangerous mindsets a person can have. People assume that just owning a gun makes them safe, but in reality, it doesn't work that way. A firearm is a tool, not a protective force field, and it comes with serious limitations, both in terms of practicality and legality. First, let's talk about reaction time. If someone is already within striking range, do you honestly think you're gonna have time to draw your weapon? Violence happens fast, faster than most people realize. If someone blitzes you at full speed, reaching for a gun is a death sentence, especially if he has a knife. You're not in a gun range where you can calmly draw and fire. In close quarters, you'll be lucky if you can even get your hand on your weapon before you're either tackled, stabbed, or knocked unconscious. Second, let's talk about legal consequences. You just can't pull a gun out anytime you feel uncomfortable or threatened. Lethal force is only justified in specific legal situations, and if you draw in the wrong situation, you could be charged with brandishing a weapon, assault with a deadly weapon, or even murder. Thinking that just having a gun automatically means you're covered is a good way to end up in prison. And here's the reality. Most street fights don't justify pulling out a gun. What are you gonna do then? If you can't fight, you're left scrambling with no backup plan, completely exposed. A gun doesn't replace fighting ability. It only works if you can deploy it in time and legally justify its use. And finally, let's talk about false confidence. Too many people think carrying a gun makes them untouchable. It doesn't. If you can't fight, you're just a walking liability with a false sense of security. Carrying a gun is not a replacement for knowing how to fight with your bare hands. The real solution, learning a reality-based self-defense system that covers deadly force techniques, because they don't have the same limitations as firearms. Now, a proper system teaches you how to neutralize threats instantly, whether you're armed or unarmed. It prepares you for situations where you can't access your weapon, where the fight is too close for a safe draw, or where using a gun would land you in prison. Don't get me wrong, a firearm is a great self-defense tool. In fact, I'm a certified firearms instructor and guns are a big part of my CFA system. But a gun is just one tool. You need to be the weapon. If you rely solely on a firearm, you're not prepared for real violence. You're just carrying a false sense of security. Street fights are fast, chaotic, and unforgiving. If you believe any of these myths, you're walking into a life-threatening situation with a false sense of confidence. And that's the kind of mistake that gets people killed. In real self-defense, you don't get second chances. Now, I only covered 4 myths in this video, but there are plenty more. If you want to hear me break down more dangerous misconceptions about street combat, subscribe and stay tuned, because believing the wrong advice can get you hurt or worse. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.